I'm gonna give you the 4 best strength exercises to increase the distance in your shot put, and we're gonna start right now. What's up everybody, it's Dave Miller from throwsuniversity.com, and if this is your first time to the channel and you're a coach that wants to get better at educating your athletes on the discus, the shot put, maybe the hammer throw, maybe you're actually a shot putter that wants to learn how to be more explosive, how to get stronger, how to have better technique, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you ring that notification bell so that we can help you become a champion. So at Throws University, we get hit up with a question all the time, like, hey Dave, I want the best lifts that are gonna help me become a better shot putter. I want the best movements that are gonna add 3 to 4 feet to my throw so that I can win a state title, I can become an NCAA All-American. And those questions are awesome. I love those questions because you know that the athlete is interested in becoming a better shot putter. You know that the athlete is interested in the sport. You know that they have effort into the sport, and that we can help them become a better thrower, and that the coaches also have a gold mine in a student athlete who is willing to learn, who wants to find out more information. But one of the issues is that we've got to think about, from a bigger perspective, what is it specifically that's going on in the shot throw, that's going on from a physiological perspective? What's happening, so that now we can take that step back and actually issue why specific lifts are going to work better than other lifts regarding increasing the distance thrown in the shot. And one of the biggest factors that we got to think about is we know that the shot happens in a very short period of time. We know that we have to have very good explosiveness. Our shot putters have to be able to coordinate very, very rapidly. They've got to have a technical mindset, and they've got to be able to recruit a ton of motor units in a short period of time, and also be able to handle the transfer of energy at the front of the circle to hit a monster throw. So we know that these things go into throwing. So now we can take that step back and we can sit there and say, okay, from a physiological perspective, we know we've got to coordinate really, really quickly. So what strength lifts are going to help us with coordination? What strength lifts are going to help us to decelerate the implement, or to decelerate that left side at the finish so the left side can handle all the energy that's transferring forward? What are the strength movements that are going to help carry over to generate monster PRs in the shot put? Coming in at that number 4 spot to help blow up your shot put distance, the bench press, okay? So I'm sure there's a couple grumbles out there. I'm sure there's people saying, oh, bench press, really? It's that easy? And yes, it is that easy. If we can increase our bench to a decent level, if you're a post-collegiate shot putter, you should be benching close to 500 pounds at least. If you're a collegiate shot putter, you should be able to rep over 405 if you're a male. If you're a female, you should be able to rep over 205 to 225. If you're in high school, you should be able to bench press 315. If you're a female, you should be able to bench press over 200 pounds. Now, there's going to be athletes that are outliers. There are going to be athletes that don't do those numbers, but they still throw far. But for a general population, utilizing the bench press can go a really, really long way. We're going to be able to increase the stability in our shoulder girdle. We're going to be able to increase the strength in our tricep, which is responsible for elbow extension. Elbow extension happens at the finish of the shot throw, right? So if our tricep is strong, now elbow extension can happen a little bit more rapidly, and the bench press has a nice big carryover. On top of that, you can do your own experiments. You can take somebody as a coach or as an athlete, and you can sit there and say, okay, when I was benching 225 for 5, my standing throw was this far. When I benched 225 for 10, or when I could bench 300 plus pounds, now my standing throw was this far. So you can see that pretty direct correlation, and that's going to go a long way in increasing your distance thrown in the shot. Coming in at that number 3 spot, I like barbell step-ups. And if you understand the aspect of what's going on from a physiological perspective, when we're gliding or when we're spinning, we're going to be in unilateral positions quite a bit. And on top of that, our trunk has to be stable. Our thoracic spine has to be extended so the shot sits behind our right hip if we're a right-handed thrower. And one of the big factors behind doing barbell step-ups, and I would recommend doing it to 14 to 18 inch box depending upon your height and your tibia length, is one of the big factors is the fact that you're increasing your dynamic trunk control. You're doing a leg exercise that's forcing you to have a ton of tension in your trunk. So it's actually going to be stimulating your abs, your back, all around your entire gut, right? So we need to try and factor this in. On top of that, if we're spinners or gliders, we're gonna be in a unilateral position pretty frequently. And if you can think about when you're driving up off that single leg, you put your front leg on the box, you're driving up as rapidly as possible. This is gonna be similar to that right leg grounding in the middle. And we wanna see that right leg stay flexed and ground forward and rotate forward as we're finishing that big throw. So it's important to train that unilateral position so that we constantly make good progress. It's important to train that dynamic trunk control, and that's gonna help us to hit better positions throughout the throw, specifically for the shot. Coming in at that number 2 spot, we've got the push press. Now, I'll put up a disclaimer here, okay? I believe the push press from the front rack is better than the push press from behind the neck. However, I also believe that if you do have wrist issues, it's perfectly fine to do behind the neck push press. It will go a long way. And there's a couple different reasons why I like to use the push press. The push press, one, carries over very, very well to the vertical jump. The vertical jump is all based around rapid coordination. That's one of the key elements behind throwing far. So if we have rapid coordination, now all of a sudden we're gonna have better throws. On top of that, the push press, the long finish, that big drive. One, you're learning how to develop a ton of force from your legs. That force has to transfer through your trunk, through your gut. And if we can remember back to the step-ups, we wanna make sure that we have a strong dynamic trunk control. Now, that's gonna transfer through the gut into your hands, into the barbell. Finally, when you're extending the elbows at the finish of the push press, this is gonna be very, very similar to the finish on the shot throw. You're gonna have that elbow extension. So the stronger our triceps get, the better that finish is gonna be. And we've had some of our guys push press over 180 kilos. Sam Mattis, although he's a discus thrower, has push press 190 kilos. And this is just phenomenal off the chart strength, but that's because he knows how to coordinate rapidly. He's got tremendous strength. And that's one of the factors behind the push press, is that transfers over very, very well because it trains your trunk. It trains a nice rapid coordination, and it helps improve the strength of your elbow extensors. So before we get into that number 1 exercise, if you want more information or you want a program that has these exercises in it, go over to throwsuniversity.com. You can click on the link down in the description and you can pick up a program specifically designed to help you get stronger so you can improve the distance thrown and the shot put. Coming in at that number 1 strength exercise to improve the distance thrown in the shot is the front squat. So a lot of shot putters are gonna be sitting there like, no, I hate this, the front squat sucks. I can't get my rack on my elbows. It hurts my wrists, it hurts my elbows. And that's a problem with mobility, okay? The front squat should not be avoided. It should be improved upon over and over again. And if you can't handle that front rack, then we gotta fix your wrist here. We gotta fix your elbows, your tricep mobility. We gotta fix your lat mobility. And all of that is gonna help you improve your throw in general. But on top of that, the front squat is going to have a tremendous carryover to your trunk. Again, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the strength work goes back to training core strength, trunk strength, all of this stuff, because that's gonna help us transfer energy the best from the ground into the shot. So one of the biggest things with the front squat is that it forces your abs, your mid-back, your trunk in general to be very, very strong. On top of that, the front squat has a little bit less stress on the knee joint in relative comparison to the back squat. So shot putters tend to be stupid strong, okay? I recommend the front squat because it decreases that load a little bit. So now that they're not as beat up. On top of that, it's going to improve their mobility. Their ankle mobility is going to improve. That's going to increase their ability to plantar flex in the middle of the circle. It's also going to improve their hip mobility. And if they're racked properly, now their thoracic spine is extended and they're able to hold the shot a little bit more effectively. If you can't front squat, I do recommend doing zombie squats or the classic bodybuilder front squat, but I do recommend trying to learn how to maximize your mobility so that you can actually hit that front squat position properly, because that's going to also help you improve the clean. And that's one final factor behind the front squat, is that as you increase that front squat strength, your clean is also going to start to get a little bit more explosive and a little bit stronger. And that is going to help you rapidly coordinate so that you can lead to bigger throws. So if you want a training program that has all these exercises in it, head over to throwsuniversity.com and you can pick up a strength training program designed to improve your shot putting capability. So one of the most important elements behind being a shot putter is being explosive. We have to be effective with coordination as rapidly as possible. We've got about 2 seconds to generate a ton of force. So that means we've got to be strong, we've got to be mobile, we have to have technical thought, we have to have technical coordination, but most importantly, we have to be explosive. And to be explosive, we need to be in the weight room doing the right exercises and executing those movements as effectively as possible. And if we can effectively execute explosive exercises, we're going to be able to transfer that energy from the weight room into the circle. And now we can hit bigger PRs. So coming in at that number 4 spot for the explosive exercises, we're gonna start right off the bat with a power clean. This is a simple movement. It's an easy movement to teach our throwers how to execute. And almost every single strength coach in the United States knows how to teach the power clean, okay? So if we can think about the key factors here, we wanna see a technical comprehension. We want our throwers to learn how to develop force rapidly with technique. We want them to learn how to get stronger with technique. And so if they have that technical mindset in the weight room, that's going to transfer better to the circle. And that's the key factor here with the power clean. They're going to learn how to be explosive right off of the floor. They're going to learn how to clear their knees back. They're going to learn how to make hip contact so that they have good hip extension. And then when they have that good hip extension, they're going to use that upper body. They're going to get big time traps and they're going to catch that clean and absorb a ton of force. When they can absorb that force, now they're going to improve their dynamic trunk control. These are all key factors behind the throw in the shot put. If we can learn how to absorb force, if we can learn how to absorb energy, and if we can generate force very, very rapidly, that's going to lead to bigger throws. And that's why we love to utilize the clean up to 2 or 3 days a week, 5 to 6 sets for 2 to 4 reps. Coming in at that number 3 spot, this is going to be an easy one for everybody to do, and a lot of time coaches forget how simple movements can really go a long way, especially with shot putters. I love to utilize clap push-ups, and even to this day, some of my world-class discus throwers, some of my world-class shot putters still do clap push-ups every single program. And the reason being is that when you execute a clap push-up, you learn how to recruit effectively from the pecs. We learn how to extend our elbows very quickly. And that elbow extension is going to lead to longer throws. It's going to lead to a bigger hit on the finish. It's going to lead to another 2 to 3 feet if we learn how to apply that force from our tricep into the implement. So clap push-ups also can be utilized to improve your bench press. Not only is it going to help you train to be more explosive with your upper body, it's going to help you lock out your bench. If your bench press gets a little bit better, now your standing throw gets a little bit better, and then your standing throw gets better, now your full throw gets better, and it all works synergistically. So utilize clap push-ups almost 2 to 3 days a week. I recommend doing them for 5 to 6 sets of 10 to 15 reps. I even have my high school athletes do clap push-ups 50 reps every single night. If they don't bench press 300 pounds, I make them do 50 clap push-ups every single night until they hit that 300-pound bench press. Coming in at that number 2 spot, I've got a unilateral leg movement, and that's gonna be jump lunges. And this is an exercise that I believe can help athletes just feel ridiculously strong when they're in the middle of the circle. And if we can think about when a shot putter lands here, right? They're gonna land here, they've gotta be strong. Same thing if they're gliding. They've gotta land in that unilateral position and then that left gets grounded. So the jump lunge is a really good way to train the posterior chain. It's a really good way to improve mobility in the hips. It's a really good method on how to coordinate. You gotta switch your feet back and forth. You gotta jump as high as you possibly can and then absorb that force. It's a good exercise to utilize if you favor one side over the other. There's a whole bunch of different reasons, and I'm gonna share a story. Justin Rohde is a 21-29 shot putter, okay? He went to 2012 Olympics. He was my training partner when I was training with Dr. Anatoly Bondarchuk. He would always say that when he was doing jump lunges with a dumbbell, he felt like a freight train. He felt like he could get to the middle of the circle and everything would just light up. And I believe that is 100% accurate with a large majority of shot putters. If you can execute a movement as simple as a jump lunges and you start to get some good bunnies, you start to feel really explosive in the glutes and the hamstrings and the quads, and now you start to coordinate that position, you start to feel nice and mobile, you start to feel more limber. When you start to feel more limber, you've got that elasticity in the circle, that's gonna apply to that huge finish. I recommend doing them 1 to 2 days a week. Do them for 4 or 5 sets of 3 to 4 reps on each leg. Now, if you need help with becoming a more explosive shot putter, you need help understanding programming behind it, but most importantly, you need to learn what you should be doing every single day in the weight room, click on the link down below, head over to throwsuniversity.com. You can pick up our 8-week explosive shot put training program that's gonna help you become an explosive freak and hit monster PRs. Coming in at that #1 spot, the pad bench, okay? So what is the pad bench? If we can think about, we're getting on the bench, we're gonna take that bar off the rack, but we've got an Air-X pad or a foam pad, or we got towels, whatever it is. You got about 2 inches of padding. Put it under your shirt, you can put it over top of your shirt, whatever you need. We're gonna lower that bar. Sometimes it can be aggressive, sometimes it can be a little bit slower, and we're gonna get a nice bounce off of that pad. And this bounce is gonna transfer really, really well to the circle because it's gonna train your body how to utilize that stretch shortening cycle. You're gonna feel a nice lengthening of the pecs. That's gonna lead to that big drive. And that's exactly what we wanna see when we're getting to the front of the circle. That left's gonna ground, we're gonna open up that left arm, that's gonna create a stretch shortening cycle. That's gonna lead into that big pec, rotating forward and smashing that finish. I like to utilize a pad bench sometimes with a very slow eccentric, 8, 9, 10 seconds, followed by 2 to 3 rapid reps. I also like to utilize the pad bench with 4 to 6 reps as fast as possible, and you can time it. You can get really, really creative. It's gonna help your lockout on the bench press. It's gonna help with that stretch shortening cycle. It's gonna help on the finish at the front of the circle. It's gonna help you feel really, really strong. And if you're doing it with less of eccentric tension, so let's say you lower it a little bit quicker and you get that little bounce, it's actually gonna help you recover and be a little bit more fresh, which in turn is gonna lead to those big bombs. So utilize the pad bench 1 to 2 days a week, 5 sets, 4 to 6 reps. Don't go too heavy with it unless you're trying to improve that bench press lockout. Keep it a little bit lighter, around 70 to 80%. Hammer that for good speed, and that's gonna help you drop some major PRs. Now let's think about the shot put. We're existing in a 7-foot circle. We're executing an extremely rapid movement in 7 feet. This is gonna happen in what, 1.5, 2.5 seconds, all very, very fast. With that being said, if you're a glider, these lifts pertain to you. If you're a spinner, these lifts pertain to you. So you're gonna have to accelerate a 4-kilo implement or a 12-pound shot or a 6-kilo implement or a 7.26 kilo shot in a very short distance in a very short period of time so that you can throw it longer than your opponents. Now, with that being said, I'm not gonna use weightlifting exercises. I wanna use strictly lower body strength movements that you can start with that will directly impact your shot putting result. And we're gonna come in with that #5 exercise. That #5 exercise is going to be the single leg squat, okay? So the single leg squat, I wanna see that rear leg elevated. I wanna see good hip mobility. I wanna see good coordination and good stability. Remember, we're accelerating in a very short period of time. So we have to have good mobility. And now we've gotta start to think about Strength training for shot putters. We've done a whole entire video on this in those key elements. We've got to have good dynamic trunk control. We've got to have good strength. We've got to have good rate of coordination and stability. So single leg squat will help all of these factors. It's going to help with that dynamic trunk control. And think about if we're a glider, we're coming out of the back in that unilateral position and we're going to be more stable in the middle. Think about a spinner when they ground with that right leg in the middle, or if they're a left-handed thrower, when the left leg grounds, they're in a single leg position and they have to be able to control that position. And by doing so, and by increasing that unilateral strength, they're going to be able to handle that speed when they ground in the middle. So use a single leg squat with that rear leg elevated. Try to touch your knee to a pad or a towel and make sure that you try to push that a little bit here and there. Every once in a while, you go for a big triple, you go for a big set of 5, something like that. You can use dumbbells, you can use a barbell, but improve your single leg squat to reap those rewards in that 7-foot circle. That fourth key lift to improve your lower body strength is a reverse hyper. Okay, now a lot of people might not have reverse hyperextension, the machine. You can also use a glute ham machine. This is another exercise that I love that can also be used in conjunction or to replace a reverse hyper if you don't have it. If you don't have that, you can use a back extension like a Roman chair. If you don't have the Roman chair, you could use good mornings. What I'm looking for is I want, with the reverse hyper, I really like how it decompresses the spine. I also like how it really lengthens all of the erector muscles along the spine. I like how it forces lengthening from the back in through the glutes all the way into the hamstrings, and it also forces your gut. You want to focus on pushing that belly into the pad, and then as you raise your legs, your hips actually start to extend from your hamstrings, from your glutes, from even your lower back to a point. So the reverse hyper is a great exercise as an accessory. It's a great exercise for injury prevention in the lower back. And it's also just a really, really good movement that you can utilize to drastically improve the sequencing of your posterior chain. So use a reverse hyper. We use it with our throwers 2 to 3 days a week. A lot of our throwers even warm up on the reverse hyper machine because of what it does with your trunk and how it coordinates with that entire posterior chain. Coming at that number 3 spot, we've got another accessory, banded Cossack squats, okay? So a lot of throwers are extremely tight in our hips. And so when we're throwing, we've got to be mobile in our lower back. We've got to be mobile in hip abduction and adduction. As you go out, and if you have your foot hooked up to a band, that band's going to pull your leg away. So you have a little bit of eccentric resistance as you're going through the eccentric movement. And then as you bring it in and you adduct the hip in, you adduct the foot into your hip, now you have to accelerate more because it's attached to a band. A lot of spinners have groin problems. A lot of gliders have groin problems. And when we learn how to abduct and adduct properly in our hips, we're increasing our mobility, we're gonna increase our ankle mobility, we're gonna increase the entire functionality of our hip girdle. So utilize these. One, you could do these as a warm-up, nice and easy. You could also use a dumbbell and have it as a goblet squat position as you do the banded Cossack squat. You can use these to warm up for throwing. Anything to help you feel better all throughout that hip girdle and to really make you feel more mobile so that you can hit those monster bombs. That second key lift, and a lot of throwers love to shy away from this lift because it's hard, it's brutal, it's an exercise that everybody hates doing. That exercise is a front squat. And I love the front squat, okay? I love the front squat for the dynamic trunk control. I love it, how it forces your back to actually utilize co-contractions. I love it for the mobility that it can create in your ankles and in your lower back, and even around how your knees drive forward and you have to stay very, very upright. A lot of throwers that typically will do a low bar back squat will benefit tremendously from a front squat because it'll teach them how to keep that upright posture. When they have a more upright posture, now when they ground in the middle, they're gonna be able to hold that posture a little bit more aggressively, and that's gonna help them set up for that big finish. It also carries over really well to cleans, push presses, jerks, all these other lifts that play a huge role in improving their overall power output for the shot put, even if you're a glider and for a spinner. So utilize the front squat consistently. Don't shy away from it. Work on that shoulder mobility, work on that wrist mobility. And if you can't do that, you can do zombie squats. Now, a lot of you are gonna cry when you do zombie squats because they're very, very, very challenging. I cry myself when I'm doing those zombie squats. So make sure that you're doing either a front squat, a zombie squat, even a bodybuilder's front squat to a point, and execute that consistently to help improve your overall throwing. Now, before we go into that number one lift, if you need help with a strength training program for throwing, for being a shot putter, click on the link down below, go to throwsuniversity.com, and we can help you hit monster PRs. We've had dozens of athletes go to the Division I level to compete in the NCAA. We've had 5 throwers at the Olympics this past year in Tokyo. So click on the link down below, head over to throwsuniversity.com so we can help you become a champion. Now, that number one key lift, we all saw Joe Kovacs do this. Crazy, what was it, 870 pound squat for 4. Back squat is the best lift for lower body strength training for shot putters. It is phenomenal, and there's a couple different reasons why. One, the loading, it forces you to adapt at very, very high rates, forces some trunk control, it forces crazy coordination, and just overall general strength. It also improves your weightlifting movements, like technical coordination movements, like the snatch, like the clean, like behind the neck jerk, all movements that transfer tremendously well over to the shot. And then finally, I've even seen in our experience that as shot putters increase their back squat, their global strength will improve, even their bench press will improve because their back squat starts to go up so much. So they start to get a little bit more of a hormonal response from those big back squats. They start to understand how to grind and push themselves a little bit more. They understand how to recruit more effectively, and that transfers to all these other lifts. And on top of that, they also learn how to bring that intensity under the bar. And when we start to learn that in the weight room, we can transfer that over to the circle. So do back squats consistently. And I don't want to see little quarter squats. I want to see at least just below 90, if not ass to grass. Utilize back squats consistently. Figure out a good system to use them in conjunction with front squats, and use all of these other movements to improve your lower body strength training for shot put specifically. And if you need help, click on the link down below, head over to throwsuniversity.com, and until next time, guys, peace. Okay, so every shot putter has this dream. You watch videos of Chuck Adequachi benching 550 for reps. Peyton Otterdahl, same thing, hammering that 550 pound bench. Christian Cantwell back in the day, 600. So we know that we've got to have a really strong upper body to throw really far with the shot. And if we look at the shot for what it is, it's a 7-foot circle. You got 2 to 3 seconds to accelerate a 16 pound or a 5K or a 6K implement as quickly as possible. The name of the game is acceleration. Whoever can accelerate the fastest and apply that directly into the shot will throw the furthest. That's simple. That's what we're trying to do here. And so that means, yes, you've got to have leg strength. Yes, you've got to have good rotational strength. You've got to have good technique, but you also have to have a really powerful, strong upper body that explodes on the finish so that you can hit the shit out of it, right? And so that takes us into those 4 best exercises for upper body strength. Now, one little story I wanted to share with everybody. I've seen videos of Darlin Romani benching, I think, 600 pounds. Joe Rumor is closer to 7 with his bench press. And you get around guys like Joe and guys like Darlin Romani, especially Darlin's traps. It looks like his traps come up to the top of his head. He's so big. Going into these exercises, we've got to realize there is some vanity. Like some shot putters be like, oh, I don't train like a bodybuilder. You don't train like a bodybuilder, but you still like to be big. There is some vanity behind that. So some of these movements are going to actually contribute to that viewpoint that the outside world has of us as shot putters. And so that first key exercise that we're going to talk about is going to be a push press, okay? Now, I like using push presses behind the neck typically because it's a little bit easier on the shoulders. It's a little bit easier of stability. You can feel good hip drive. And I really, really like to use push presses as an upper body movement because there's a little bit of connection between the hips and between that leg drive, and you learn how to sort of apply that through your trunk into your hands. I would recommend doing behind the neck push presses if you have jerk boxes that you can drop the weight onto. If you don't have jerk boxes, you're going to have a slower eccentric to lower that back to your shoulders, and that will stimulate some serious growth inside of your triceps. So I recommend, if you've got jerk boxes, 4 or 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps. If you're going to use this to potentiate your nervous system for a big time bench press, maybe you're going to do 5 triples or 5 doubles at a lower intensity, but it's still a great upper body exercise that teaches you how to transfer into that finish. And if you can think about that lockout on the top of the push press, that will transfer into that big time finish at the end of an actual throw. So use push presses once or twice a week. push the weight if you feel good. Make sure you've got jerk boxes. If you don't, have that really slow eccentric, and that's gonna build some really good tricep strength. So our number 2 exercise for building upper body strength for the shot put is going to be explosive med ball bench. So the explosive med ball bench is a phenomenal movement that you can use closer to peaking. So think about when we finish the throw, there's a lot of pecs. Okay, there's a lot of your shoulder, there's deltoid, there's a lot of your tricep, there's a lot of even your forearm as you finish with that big flick. So we've got to be explosive as possible. So if we're in the fall or even in the early part of the season, maybe we don't use that explosive med ball bench because we're not really starting to peak. But as we start to peak, you can start to play around with different loads, and you can go, you can use a 30-pound med ball or drop down to a 15-pound med ball, and you can see which one transfers really well into the circle. And so the reason why I love this movement is you have force absorption when you catch, you've got to coordinate quickly, and then you have this stretch shortening cycle where you drive it back up, and then someone just guides it, drops it and guides it back in. It's almost like a depth drop or a plyometric for your upper body. But that acceleration is taking, it's a little bit slower than what you'll see inside of the circle, but it's sort of the link between that big time bench press and the speed in the circle. So it's really going to do a good job of bridging that gap. And I would recommend doing this twice a week, 4 sets of 5, 4 sets of 7, something like that. And that's gonna take us into our next big exercise that's gonna help you as a shot putter with your upper body. And this is going to be a miracle grow. Okay, so a miracle grow is a movement that's gonna help you open up your lats. It's gonna help you open up your triceps, open up your shoulders, increase your mobility, and you will get more sore in your tricep than ever before. I promise you, I guarantee you, you will never be this sore in your tricep unless you've done the miracle grow before. Okay, the big key here is that I recommend, it's not a pullover. A lot of people, oh, it's only a dumbbell pullover. It is not a dumbbell pullover. You will take the dumbbell back and then you flex. So you want to see nice, steep flexion in your elbow and big stretch all throughout your armpits, so your lats and your abs will even get nice and lengthened. We want this deep position overhead, okay, and that's gonna help open up your shoulders for a better clean rack. It's gonna help open up your shoulders to be more stable overhead because it is an overhead position. It's gonna blow up your triceps, which will help transfer to that finish. It's gonna help with the lockout on the bench press. And so use the miracle grow as a means of, one, strengthening your triceps, but also increasing your mobility. And that's another key factor here that we've got to talk about, is that when we're talking about shot putters, a lot of us are, internally rotated, just big, huge bench pressers. We've got to make sure we are doing some pulling movements. We're doing external rotations for shoulder health, do some neutral grip pull-ups. These are all great exercises to make sure that you are still training your lats and your upper back so that that foundation gets developed and is used when you're hitting these big time lifts. I recommend Miracle Grow once a week, 5 sets of 7. Go 3 sets of 7, 1 set of 12 to 15. I'm promising you, you will never be this sore. Make sure that you're getting that big time stretch, you're flexing in the elbows and getting those shoulders back nice and deep. And then that's gonna be a great accessory for the best exercise that you can use out of all the movements for your upper body, and that's a pad bench press, okay? And the reason why I love the pad bench and why I love how it transfers over to the shot put is there's a huge overload as you go on through the eccentric, okay? So you could use 120% of your max. But then as you get that pad, you hit that pad, you're able to get, 1, a bounce, 2, there's gonna be this massive stretch shortening cycle. So because you're overloaded, your nervous system's firing. We gotta recruit, we gotta recruit, we gotta recruit. So all of the high threshold motor units are being recruited, and then as you get down to the bottom, you can speed up the eccentric. That leads to this lighting up of your entire nervous system through your GTO, through your muscle spindles, which then elicits a huge response into that lockout. So you get a little bit of a explosiveness off the pad, and it gets right around that sticking point, and that's where you can accelerate through. It can
get you to overload the lift, but also if you're peaking and you need to be a little bit more fresh, you could go down to 150 kilos if you're a world-class thrower and just, feel like a total machine. You go boom, 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 with 350 pounds, moving that at 2 meters per second, which is phenomenal. And that's why the pad bench is such a great exercise. It's good at overloading the triceps. It's good at improving the lockout position in the bench press, which will lead to that big monster finish. So again, make sure you're doing all your back work, make sure that you're balancing out your shoulders, and so that you can make sure that you're recovering well. But ultimately use these 4 exercises: behind the neck push press with jerk boxes, explosive med ball bench, learn how to do the miracle grow properly, and then finally execute the pad bench twice a week. You could go one day earlier in the week, a little bit heavier, one day later in the week, a little bit lighter. Smash those weights, and that's going to lead to those monster throws. I'm going to give you 5 key body weight exercises that you can use to improve your shot putting, and we're going to start right now. Okay, so what is the shot? We're gonna be throwing a 4-kilo implement, or a 6-pounder if we're really young, or a 12-pounder if we're in high school, or a 16-pounder if we're in college, in a 7-foot circle. So there's a big concept here. We have to produce as much force as possible in as little time. If we can produce a ton of force in a little bit of time, that means we're gonna throw farther. If we throw farther, we win. So all of these body weight exercises are gonna help improve that impulse. It's gonna help improve that power output, which then gets transferred into the implement and ideally leads to those longer throws. So that first big exercise is going to be a jump lunge, and I recommend doing this throughout the entire year. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's gonna help you in the middle of the circle. It's gonna help you with your hip mobility, and you're gonna be more athletic. Earlier in the year, what you can do is when you're doing a jump lunge, you can actually do a pause. So you focus on deceleration. So you might be here, jump, pause, jump, pause, jump, pause. Okay, so now we wanna focus on that deceleration. That's gonna help when we hit the finish at the front of the circle. As the season progresses, one thing you can do to improve that reaction time and to improve your posterior chain and your overall coordination is just rapid. Okay, here. If you do 5 sets of 4 on each leg, you're gonna light up your glutes, you're gonna light up your hamstrings, and in turn, improve your coordination. And rate of coordination is what's gonna lead to that greater impulse, which is gonna lead to that longer throw. Okay, so that next key exercise is going to be a clap push-up, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of a twist here. And that twist can actually help on that extension on the finish. When we think about clap push-ups, it's gonna help us with our bench press. Bench press is known to drastically improve your shot putting capability. So first, if you can't do a clap push-up, do a lot of dumbbell benches, do a lot of barbell benches, do a lot of push-ups on pipes. That's gonna help improve the strength in your triceps and in your chest and in your shoulders. Then as you get stronger, you're gonna be able to be more coordinated and be more explosive. And that's where we're gonna take this clap push-up. Again, further out from the season, you can start to focus on deceleration. So you can do a clap push-up here and pause. Pause here, okay? That's gonna light up your chest and your triceps. That's a little bit of a twist. We can also do a little bit of a variation of a gorilla push-up. So if you notice, I've got this square here. My hands here, I can rotate side to side. That's also gonna help improve my tricep strength, my shoulder strength, and my ability to really smash that finish. That's the big factor with clap push-ups, is there's acceleration through that full range of motion, and that's exactly what we need at the front of the circle. Okay, so in the sport of throwing, especially with the shot put, there's a lot of hip adduction. Okay, so if I'm a spinner, I'm adducting my hip here. I'm adding to that midline as I come out of the back of the circle. I'm even holding an isometric position with that left hip as I come out of the back. So a lot of athletes have groin issues because we don't like to squat to full depth. There's a lot of research that when you squat full range of motion, you're training your hip adductors. So start squatting full range of motion to strengthen those. Now, this exercise is a bodyweight exercise that will help strengthen the hip adductors and abductors, okay, abductors as well. And that's gonna be known as the Cossack squat. So I get set here, okay, and I wanna have nice posture, get as low as I can, control, and I can go back and forth. I would recommend doing 4 sets, 7 each side, and really try and focus on feeling that groin as you pull, okay? I'm pulling this way, get nice and mobile. That's gonna help improve my hip mobility. It's gonna help improve my strength, and lead to ultimately better speed out of the back of the circle. On this next exercise, everyone out there is gonna have a great excuse where I'm too big, I can't do this. Well, guess what? Every shot putter should be capable of doing pull-ups. And if we're doing pull-ups on a regular basis, we're gonna have a better shoulder girdle. We're gonna have a stronger shoulder girdle. So then we can do snatches, we can do behind the neck jerks, we can do more presses. And when we balance our shoulder stability, now we can handle more volume with those presses and in turn get a bigger bench press. So pull-ups will help us with shot putting. And it all comes back to playing this massive supporting role. It's also gonna help with our mobility in our overhead position, which will help us hold the shot back a little bit more. If we can hold that shot a little bit deeper, it's gonna be behind our hip. We're gonna have better tension in our trunk, and that's gonna lead to a better stretch in the middle of the circle, which in turn, now because we're doing pull-ups, our bench press is better, we have better tension at the front, and we smash that finish. So, get here, okay, pull that chin up, come down slow. You can lengthen your lats here. Boom. All the way down, back up. One more. Boom. Now, a lot of big dudes are gonna make excuses. They're gonna say, I can't do that. I can just go do lat pulls. Bull. If we have people like Taman Johnson and Eric Favors that can rip out pull-ups weighing 300 plus pounds, then everybody out there can learn how to do pull-ups, okay? And if you can't, you can pick up a power elastic here at garagestrength.com. You can wrap this around, okay? Wrap that around, and now you can put your foot inside of our loop here, and then that's gonna help you with that assistance. I don't need that because I learned how to do pull-ups when I was 7 years old, fortunately because of my dad and being a wrestler. Everybody out there, start doing your pull-ups. Now, this last key exercise is gonna be absolutely phenomenal for your quad strength. It's gonna help improve your anterior sequence. It's gonna lead to better performance. No, it's not a leg extension. What it's gonna be is perfect plyometric for bigger people. Bigger throwers tend to be bigger. This plyometric movement deloads your body while forcing your nervous system to recruit really rapidly. It's a stair jump, okay? So if we jump and then we land with our feet a little bit higher, that alleviates a little bit more stress. If I would do a hurdle hop and land entirely on the ground, there's gonna be a heavier load on the ground when I land. That's okay if I have the strength levels to do that. But one of the other reasons why I love doing stair jumps is because it forces that rhythm, it forces that timing, it forces you to be a little bit more athletic and land soft on the feet. So I haven't done stair jumps yet this morning. I'm gonna try and do it and get to the top in 3 jumps on my first try. Hopefully I don't look like a clown, but I'm gonna demonstrate how to react quickly, use that upper body to coordinate and be fast. And you can do this at your football stadium. You can do this practicing with double leg bounds and then leading into stair jumps. It's gonna help you be a little bit more reactive. Oh, not reactive like that. Okay, I gotta do one more because that was absolutely horrible. And I feel like a pathetic person. When I feel like a pathetic person, like all throwers, I feel like a bad human being. So one more example here with stair jumps. Wow, bad morning for me, but use stair jumps at least once a week. You can do 5 sets of 3 jumps. It's gonna help you be a little bit more explosive, improve your vertical jump, and in turn, have a better finish. So if you need help with your training, you need periodization inside of your programming, click on the link down below, head over to throwsuniversity.com, pick up our elite throws training program to help you hit those monster PRs. Until next time, guys, peace. So that first key factor that we gotta do when we're thinking about special strength for the shot, specifically the spin. If we're spinners, okay, what goes into being a shot putter, right? We have a 7-foot circle, and we have a 7-foot circle where we have to produce as much force as possible. And producing that force in as short of a time frame as possible. So we have to be extremely explosive. We have to have some absolute strength. Look at someone like Joe Kovacs. He's the 2nd greatest thrower of all time, and I predict he's probably gonna break the world record before his career's over. He's the 2nd clean 23-meter shot putter, and on top of that, he has a ton of max strength. Now, how does he transfer that max strength out into the actual throw? He takes a lot of throws. He probably does a lot of speed work. He probably does a lot of different exercises that force him to be a little bit more mobile, and that can transition then into producing a large amount of force in a short period of time. So when we're thinking about throwing as a shot putter that's spinning, we have to be mobile in our hips, we have to be mobile in our shoulders, we have to have good trunk rotation, and we have to be able to put a lot of force into the ground, just like a sprinter. We have to have those ground reaction forces that then transfer through our trunk and then into the shot as we're rotating. What is special strength? I believe special strength is one of those things that can directly bridge the weight room here with the circle, okay? So if we have the circle, we're doing specific work. We are actually throwing the shot with a spin, okay? When we're in the weight room, we're doing back squats, we're doing power cleans, we're doing bench presses. And then what we can do to unite that is take a movement that might be loaded a little bit more than the actual shot, and it might be a little bit different than throwing with a spin, but it's close enough that it mimics the actual throw. So that's where special strength comes into play. This is a technique, a hack that I learned directly from my former coach, Olympic champion, Dr. Anatoly Bondarchuk. He was a huge proponent for special strength movements. We would throw dumbbells, we would throw bricks, we would throw cinder blocks, we would throw shots for height. Those are all great examples of special strength movements. And actually, now that I think about it, I was gonna give you 3, but I just gave you 3 extra special strength movements that now you can use inside of your training. And I think that's another key factor here, is that if you're traveling and you don't have access to a weight room, but you're actually still throwing, you can still train special strength movements for the spin and still reap a benefit from that overall adaptation. So now we're gonna go into those 3 key aspects that you can use as a spinner to improve your special strength. Now, these are exercises that you might see inside of our elite training plan. The elite training plan is available at throwsuniversity.com. You can click on the link down below, head over to Throws U, and you can pick that up today if you want to be the next beast shot putter. We're gonna go into our first key exercise. And one of the big parts that I love about band-based special strength work is that you can use bands when you're traveling. Like I mentioned, you can put them in your suitcase, you can put them in your backpack, you can take them with you to the track. They're very, very easy to transport, and they also help you get a little bit better mind-muscle connection because of the tension you're gonna feel. Now, we're using a Garage Strength Power Elastic band, okay? So these Power Elastics, you can pick these up at garagestrength.com. They've got handles here, so you can do a lot of unique stuff here. This first key is gonna help you as a spinner feel the rotation tension that you need when you're doing a standing throw. You can feel this then and transfer this into the full throw. Remember, if we're doing special strength movement, if I'm gonna get into this position, I want it to emulate that front part of the circle, okay? So we wanna feel this tension that would mimic what we're doing with the throw. I like using this Power Elastic with the handle here, and I'm gonna come back with my arm here, and I'm holding the band elevated, okay? So if I hold the band elevated, I'm gonna hit the band with my right hand. I'm a right-handed thrower, so if you're left-handed, you would do this with the opposite arm, okay? I come through and I hold that tension, okay? And I wanna actually try and feel pushing, okay? Pushing into that Power Elastic, moving forward from that hip and from my right shoulder and from my trunk. So that's the cool part here. I'm pushing a nice ground reaction force into the ground, okay? I'm gonna get that back into my hip here, go through my trunk, into my shoulder. So I'm here, boom, hold. Come back, hold. Come back, hold. Come back, hold. And then one of the unique things is we can do this at the end after we're potentiated and really start to feel that rotational strength. So Power Elastic banded standing throw is one of the best ways, and it's the first key step that you can use to improve your special strength. Now, the next 2 keys that we're gonna go over are gonna be related more to the half turn. Okay, so this is where we're gonna really start to feel that strength carry over into the circle. We wanna focus on some technical movements. We wanna focus on positioning, balance, stability overhead. That's where that second key exercise comes into play, and this is going to be using our hydro weight, okay? So if we have our hydro weight here, what I like to do is have this elevated just slightly, right? So if I'm here, I wanna get my left leg moving. A lot of throwers struggle with the left leg rotating to the front. It is one of the hardest concepts to master in the sport of throwing. If we have a slow left leg, we tend to lean forward a little bit. When we lean forward, then our left leg gets late. When our left leg gets late, then we're gonna fall off that finish. So if we can master by using special strength movements, and if we have something that's a little unstable, like a hydro weight, so we're gonna hold this out, we're gonna rotate with that left leg forward, come through and hold overhead. This is where we wanna be stable. Put weight on a flat left foot, okay? So we're here, holding this out, rotate, boom, hold. And you can see I'm a little off balance there. I'm a little off balance because I'm leaning quite a bit. So here, okay? Boom, almost got that one. Boom, now we have better feeling into that trunk. I would do this for 5 sets of 5. Okay, we're using the garage strength hydro weight. You can pick that up today as well, but it's a movement that's gonna force that good rotational strength, and that's gonna transfer really well to the circle. Okay, now third key special strength exercise is another thing that we're gonna focus on for the half turn. This is gonna be using the strength power elastic band. So this is, again, we wanna focus on that left foot and that left foot transferring into our right hip and that right hip transferring into a monster throw, which then connects to our shoulder. Okay, so if I hold this left out, okay, I'm here, I wanna rotate here, and then as I come through, I hit here. So you can see I'm holding, I wanna feel this left move, okay? Left moves, come through, hit. Let's do that again. I'm gonna go here, left through, hit. That's one of the best ways to feel the tension from the ground and that tension, and you're also gonna have a better position holding that left shoulder. When that left leg gets rotating front, we catch deep and we rotate forward as quickly as possible. If you're more elite, you can use the HAF band, and that is also gonna help train the abs, which will transfer phenomenally into the spin shot put. So use these 3 key special strength exercises when you're trying to improve your spin shot put. Again, those 2 power elastic exercises, one from a stand, one from a half turn, then that hydro weight that adds in a little bit of tension that forces you to be a little bit more stable. Remember, special strength is something that bridges the weight room to the circle, and we use that deep inside of our elite training plan available at throwsuniversity.com, because remember, if you want to be a champion, you've always got to train and invest long-term. Until next time, peace.
What's up, everybody? It's Dave Miller from throwsuniversity.com, and if this is your first time to the channel and you're interested in becoming a better shot putter, you want to improve your technique and strength in the discus, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you ring that notification bell so that we can help you hit those monster PRs. So when we're talking about the glide specifically, we've got to go into the details behind what we're trying to do as a thrower. And as coaches, we've got to really think about every single thing is going to be geared towards improving our performance. And inside the glide, we've got to think about what happens. You know, when we drop out of the back of the circle, when our hips drop and we're getting out of the back of the circle, we want to be patient on that flat right foot if we're a right-handed shot putter. We want to be patient as our left leg drives across to the front of the circle, and then that's where we're going to really start to ignite our nervous system. We want to have a rapid drive off that right heel, extend that right knee as rapidly as possible so that it can move to the middle as quickly as possible, and then right before that left foot hits, we want to open that left arm and finish forward into that toe board as quickly as we can. So we have to look at it from the perspective of there's a lot of unilateral strength aspects that come into improving the glide. There's a lot of factors behind rate of force development, rate of coordination, and the gliders that have the fastest rate of coordination are typically going to be the ones that throw the furthest, as long as their technique is proficient. And that leads us to that second aspect. We know we've got to be powerhouses. We know we've got to coordinate at a very high rate, but we also know that there's a lot of technical aspects that go into the glide. We've got to hit these good positions. We've got to hold that knee flexion in the middle. We've got to hold a nice long push that's grounded on the finish. And so what we do is we take all these aspects and then we try to come up with ideas and we utilize these different perspectives, and we can create the top 3 best exercises to improve the special strength inside the glide. Coming in at that number 3 spot, we're going to start off right away with the dumbbell shuffle throw. So if we can think about a dumbbell shuffle, we're going to hold, if you're a post-collegiate thrower or a collegiate thrower, a 30 to a 35 pound dumbbell. If you're still in high school, I recommend a 20 to a 25 pound dumbbell. If you're men, if you're women and you're post-collegiate or you're in college, you can hold a 20 pound dumbbell. If you're in high school, you could probably throw a 15 to a 20 pound dumbbell. And what we want to focus on here is a nice shuffle throw where we're going to focus on being grounded When the dumbbell comes out of our hand, we want that right knee to be bent slightly. We want our feet to be grounded. We want a flat left foot, and we want that right shoulder transferring forward as long as possible. And if we can think about this, what we end up seeing from a strength perspective is we see a huge increase in power output. But from a technical perspective, we can really see some leaks. And when you can think about it with our younger throwers, they'll start to do dumbbell shuffle throws, and they'll go to throw that dumbbell and they'll fall backwards. It's like the dumbbell's throwing them the other way, because they don't know how to transfer into the transfer leg. They're not transferring forward as well as they possibly can. And that's what is so effective behind the dumbbell shuffle throw, is you can get a lot of throws in a very short period of time. So you're gonna be training the muscular perspective, you're gonna be training that rate of coordination. And on top of that, your throwers are going to learn how to transfer that right shoulder forward to have that big monster finish that's going to lead to that glide PR. That second key exercise is going to be the banded A drill. So again, if we can think about that macro perspective behind the glide, there's a lot of technique that goes into play, and there's that high rate of coordination. The glide does not have as much time to lead to high rates of force development as the spin does. But if you train at high rates of coordination, you can still develop force very, very quickly with the glide. And that's where the banded A drill comes into play. If we can think about this drill, we're gonna be in that A position. The left foot's gonna be at the toe board. The right foot is gonna be in the back of the circle. We're gonna be driving off of our right heel to the power position, to that double support position, while our shoulders stay square. Think about Valerie Adams and how well she keeps her shoulders square, how well she keeps her shoulders level. The key here is that right leg is banded. We're gonna have our right ankle banded to an immovable object. And so that's gonna force our right leg to be faster, to be stronger, and to be more reactive. You're gonna have this nice long stretch and then a rapid pull forward. And when you pull forward, you're also going to stick that right down into the concrete and hold it there. And that's where it becomes very, very difficult, but that's where you can increase your stability in the middle of the circle. The band will be pulling back, but the whole goal is to apply force downward. Now we're thinking about ground reaction forces. Now we're thinking about speed in running and utilizing those factors in the circle. If we can think about that ground reaction force pushing down, we're gonna get a greater reaction back into the body when we go to finish the throw. It teaches you how to keep that right foot barely above the circle as it gets to the middle, so it's faster getting to that double support, and in turn, we can finish a lot bigger. So before we get into that number one key exercise, it's important to realize that this stuff's very, very difficult to program. It's really hard to piece together special strength exercises into a traditional strength-based program, into our traditional throws program. It's hard to think about all these different factors coming into play, but that's exactly what we do for you in our 30 Days to a Better Glide program. You can click on the link down below. You can head over to throwsuniversity.com and you can pick up your own 30 Days to a Better Glide program today. Coming in at that number one spot, we've got the banded glide, and the banded glide is going to be similar to the banded A drill. I like to put a band around the hips, just above the top of your butt, and then attached to an immovable object. And one of the key factors here is that you can change the tension of the band. It's important that when you're doing this exercise that you understand where that 7-foot circle is. And we're going to treat this as though you are gliding with a shot. So you can pretend you're holding a shot in your neck, and the resistance is going to be from that band. We're gonna come out of the back of the circle the exact same way, but utilizing the tension of the band. Now, the whole focus here is getting to double support as quickly as possible and then pausing in double support with as much tension and contractions as you possibly can, because that is where, when we start to utilize banded glides in conjunction with dumbbell shuffle throws, we're gonna get to double support faster, and the dumbbell shuffle throw is gonna help us finish longer. So now we can train both of these two together and we'll get monster throws. Now, think about when we talked about the banded A drill. Think about that ground reaction force that we talked about that's so well studied in the world of sprinting, in the world of agility, but it hasn't really been studied in the world of throwing. And that's some of the stuff that we're focusing on here is banded glides. When that right hits, when the left hits, we want ground reaction force pushing down into the ground so that we can utilize that energy to hit that monster throw. I recommend doing banded glides at the end of a training session, 3-4 sets for 7 reps, and focusing on getting to double support as quickly as possible, and then feeling that position, imprinting that position into your nervous system so that you feel stronger and you feel confident in hitting that front, and that's going to lead to massive PRs with the glide.